Why you would often breathe the wrong way. Although breathing seems natural for maintaining life functions, the way most people breathe day by day is unfortunately far from how it was intended by nature. Among the many reasons for having to learn, or rather relearn proper breathing are too much sitting, wearing tight belts and clothes and following unhealthy beauty ideals, striving to maintain a flat belly at all times. These and other unhealthy habits cause the development of ineffective breathing habits and an unnatural use of the body's anatomy. This bad breathing habit can be described simply as breathing into the chest, rather than to the abdominal region. There is a large dome-shaped muscle, called the diaphragm, right under the lungs, that separates the upper part of the body cavity from the lower part. The movement of this muscle plays an important role in expanding and compressing the lungs, and most of the breathing should happen through this movement. There are of course other muscles around the ribs that help lifting the ribcage somewhat, further expanding the chest, but this should only happen in conjunction with diaphragmatic expansion and compression, essentially helping the diaphragm to perform its work better when there is a need for some extra lung capacity, like during physical activity. Breathing into the chest essentially means that these helper muscles are being used more for regular breathing than they should be, and the diaphragm is being used less. This is unnatural and very unhealthy. While the diaphragm remains underutilized, these helper muscles, called intercostals, become overused and overstressed as they have to do most of the work of breathing, instead of only helping the diaphragm perform this duty. Take a moment to observe your own breathing. Put one hand on your chest, just on the sternum, the breastbone, and another on your belly. Breathe naturally, do not try to control your breathing. Observe your hands. Which hand is moving? Chances are you see the upper hand, the one over your chest, or both hands moving as you breathe. This means you are using the small muscles between your ribs that are responsible for lifting up and collapsing your rib cage, much more than you normally would in a resting situation. When sitting and reading, you need less air and oxygen than during physical activity. This amount of air can be obtained by the movement of your diaphragm for most. The contraction relaxation of this muscle is what makes up, or should make up, most of your breath, whether you are aware of it or not, making your lungs expand, resulting in air being sucked in, inhale, or compress, resulting in air being forced out, exhale. When you inhale, the diaphragm contracts, flattening out from its dome shape, pulling on the lungs and expanding them. This would naturally result of all internal organs under the diaphragm, the whole digestive tract, the liver, pancreas, etc., shifting somewhat downwards with each inhale. To make room for these organs, your abdominal wall will relax and let the belly expand slightly. Similarly, when you exhale, the abdominal wall returns to its flat position, your internal organs return to their original place, as the diaphragm shifts upwards, compressing the lungs, resulting in the air rushing out. The problem starts with tight clothing around the waist, bad posture, or too much sitting causing your belly to be unable to expand outwardly and sideways. To compensate for this, your body can just use the small muscles between the ribs to lift the rib cage up, so the lungs can expand upwards and outwards. This is natural when you want to take a deeper breath, or you are engaged in physical activity, giving the lungs considerable extra capacity to expand, making them capable of taking in much larger quantities of air, giving your body more of the much needed oxygen. When you sit, this excessive lifting of the ribcage means an unnecessary labor for your body. Although it may not seem as much muscular work, just consider how many inhales and exhales you go through in only a single day. Breathing is a continuous activity, and these muscles will never be able to totally relax. Unlike the muscle of the heart, that are designed to go without relaxation for a lifetime, these little muscles, like most other muscles in your body, need rest. When the intercostals are constantly strained, relaxation becomes increasingly difficult, as relaxation requires first and foremost the relaxing of your neuromuscular system. The tension accumulating in and around the chest is responsible for much of the residual stress, so common in modern society. There is another problematic outcome of bad posture, tight clothing and too much sitting, that is not being able to breathe smoothly. As you inhale, the air would enter through the nose, and into the nasal cavity, from where it will continue towards the pharynx, the upper part of the throat, which is a common passage for food and air, connecting the nasal and oral cavities. The air then passes down the airways towards the lungs. One of the pharynx's functions is separating the ways of food and air when eating, with the contraction and relaxation of the soft palate, which is less important for this discussion, although the role of the soft palate will later be of some importance. What is more important for now is the function of the pharynx in the process of inhalation. The muscles in the wall of the pharynx or throat, more particularly the nasopharynx, or the upper or nasal part of the throat, aid the suction of air through the nose by expanding the cavity, thus sucking some air in through the nose. This air is then sucked further down by the contraction of the diaphragm and other muscles, and the expansion of the lungs, as seen above. Evening out the pressure difference between the upper and lower airways by filling up the pharynx means less work for the muscles around the lungs, as they could expand easier without much resistance. Usually happening at the beginning of each inhale, such suction through the pharynx is important, as this is responsible for the sensation of sucking the air in through your nose, along with a somewhat loose soft palate. It is anatomically important when the nose is blocked or otherwise obstructed, to aid breathing without overly straining the muscles around the lungs. Unfortunately, most will continue to breathe like this, whether it is necessary or not. When you sit, your chest and abdominal region collapse and the lungs are being constantly compressed, thus the muscles usually responsible for breathing cannot fully maintain their function, as the lungs cannot properly expand in such position. Even though the muscles of the ribcage help with each breath, lifting your ribcage up, this is a lot less effective than properly using your diaphragm. To aid inhalation, the muscles of the throat will help to initiate the suction, much the same as they do when the nasal pathways are obstructed, evening out the pressure between the pharynx and the lower bronchi. Furthermore, as the average person spends so much time sitting and the muscles responsible for proper breathing cannot function to their full potential, such muscles become weak, often so much so that they are unable to initiate inhalation without fatigue. The soft palate could also play a role in having a better feel for this suction taking place. While inhaling, the soft palate would not open the nasal pathway fully, creating a greater sensation of air rushing down the pharynx, as it would have to pass through a narrower passage, also providing an audible feedback besides that created in and around the nostrils, when taking a quick, deep breath sucking air through the nose, or rather the upper throat, thus becomes perpetual, a bad habit for life. The more you breathe an improper way, the weaker your breathing becomes. The weaker the breath will be, the more you will breathe the wrong way. Breathing techniques: once you have realized you have been probably breathing the wrong way most of your life, using your lungs at a lower capacity than it has been intended by nature. It is important to understand it will be never too late to reclaim your breath, and through it, your health. The following breathing methods are meant to demonstrate how you can learn to breathe right once again. Some of the breathing techniques described here will be applicable later in this book, to be used with different meditation practices. With each meditation method, the most suitable breathing technique will be advised, but these are, more often than not, interchangeable. While some of these techniques may become automatic with practice and have the potential to change your everyday habits, some more difficult methods are meant to be deliberately practiced along your daily meditation to aid your focus and keep you in good health, both in body and spirit. Thanks for watching. Please like, share and subscribe.